What's going on, everybody? It's your boy Kenniron here today to talk about Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness. It's the next big MCU movie. It's supposed to push the MCU in the direction it's going for this phase, and there was a lot of hype around it. So today I wanted to kind of talk about it, right? Give you my thoughts on it, maybe hear a couple of you guys' thoughts on it. Do be warned, I find it really difficult to talk about this movie without just majorly spoiling the whole thing. So this is your spoiler warning. If you haven't seen it, I won't be too upset if you click off the video. You're not gonna hurt my feelings too badly. But go watch the movie and come back. Or if you just don't care about getting it spoiled for you, shit, stay tuned. First of all, let me start with what I liked about the movie. The visuals, the cinematography, all of that, super well done. I love all of it. Just the trippy visuals. They didn't really stick with me too much from the first movie. I don't know why. The first movie felt devoid of character a little bit for me. It felt like the tried and true Iron Man origin story, but it didn't stick with me as well as Iron Man did. I think Iron Man was like a better origin story overall. It's not that I disliked the first movie, it didn't really stick with me. But in this one, the visuals are just so out there, they're so crazy. You're going through all these dimensions throughout the entire movie, and it just looks like a big acid trip. This movie looks like a big acid trip. And I do actually really like it this time around. I also really love that they got Sam Raimi to direct this movie. He brings a very nice style into the MCU that we kind of haven't really seen before. I got kind of a horror aesthetic kind of overlaying the film. You know, there's a couple moments where it comes off as like really dark, really creepy. You know, it's very well put together, and I think it gives the movie a nice distinct tone, and it really sets it apart from a lot of the other Marvel movies in that way. This movie just feels kind of different because of Sam Raimi's style, and there's a lot of the Sam Raimi tropes in here that I just absolutely loved. There was the hand coming out of the rubble. That's classic Sam Raimi stuff right there. Doctor Strange, the zombie version of him, it gave me that kind of like campy Evil Dead vibe that I really actually did not mind. I thought it was going to take me out of the movie a little bit at first, but I ended up really liking it, and it honestly made me almost want to go watch the Evil Dead movies just to see the correlation in Sam Raimi's style, and just to see just kind of how he makes movies. And of course, you got Bruce Campbell in the movie. I can't go without mentioning him. It's not like he plays a big role or anything, but it was just kind of a nice little touch to see him in it. And I really liked the scene that he was in. And another thing, too, about Sam Raimi is that he gets the same composer from the Spider-Man films, Danny Elfman. And Danny Elfman gets in here, and he just tears it up. He tears it up. The music is really good. There were about 3 or 4 scenes or moments where I really was like encapsulated in the mood of the music. Now, there were a couple of spots where the music gave me Spider-Man vibes, like the Tobey Maguire Spider-Man movies. The music sounded kind of like that in some parts of the movie, but it didn't take me out of the movie. I actually liked it. So the music, chef's kiss, top notch. And I cannot mention the music without mentioning that one fight scene. If you've seen the movie, you know what I'm talking about. It's the one with the musical notes that the two Doctor Stranges are throwing back and forth at each other, trying to gain the upper hand. I thought that was a very nice, stylized fight. Everywhere I look on the internet, that is one of the highlights of the movie everybody is talking about. Everybody loves it. I'm no different. Shit's dope. And honestly, the rest of the fights as well are pretty good. They're nothing too out there. They're nothing too exceptional, but they work for what they are. I appreciate the fact that whenever they do have fights, the characters that are canonically stronger, they tend to win more often, which kind of keeps my suspension of disbelief. It keeps it, suspended, I guess. I don't know. I don't know how to word that one. But I really did appreciate that if a character was stronger, then there was no doubt they were going to win. You're not just going to pull one over on them most of the time. There is an exception or two here and there, but for the most part, if the character's stronger, they win. And I like that. I also like the brutality of a lot of the fight scenes, and just the movie in general has a lot of very brutal elements to it. There's like people just getting flayed, like people getting their heads kind of blown up from the inside. It's all just very brutal, but it was very refreshing for the MCU. And another thing too that I want to mention about the fights, they actually gave us a break from the mirror dimension. I don't know if anybody else really noticed that, but we didn't really see the mirror dimension in this movie. And I honestly really liked that. For me, it made sense for Doctor Strange to be a little more wary about using the mirror dimension in his fights, because if you remember in Spider-Man No Way Home, Doctor Strange actually loses his fight to Spider-Man in the mirror dimension, and he probably wouldn't have lost if he wasn't in the mirror dimension. So it makes sense for me that he would want to stray away from just kind of resorting to that all the time. And I like that that's kind of how it played out here. I thought it made sense for him not to use it. It felt kind of like character progression almost, but like kind of silent. Almost in the same way Tony upgraded his suits to be better equipped for like specific fights later on. I felt like that's how Doctor Strange kind of is, but instead of improving, he just kind of stays away from like the mirror dimension. Maybe he's kind of practicing in his free time, training in his free time to be better at fighting in the mirror dimension. But I'm not going to linger on that too long. It was just something neat that I noticed. One last thing that I really did enjoy was just the fact that Wanda is the main villain. But I do think there were a couple of things that could have been handled better with her, because it just felt a little off. I liked her being the villain. I liked how powerful she was. I liked how much of a threat she was. But there were just certain little nitpicks with her character throughout the movie that I had. And so with that being said, we're moving on into more of the cons that I saw in this movie. The first one being Wanda herself, like the powers she uses. She's starting to feel like a walking reality stone, which is okay. It's not the worst, but it's like I feel like we've seen a lot of this stuff before, but just with the reality stone. Like we've seen people get torn to pieces by the reality stone, even though it didn't actually happen, they didn't actually die. We have still seen, that kind of similar visual effect, and we have seen, just kind of, it felt like there was a lot of reused effects almost, and they were very reminiscent of when the reality stone was used in like Infinity War and Endgame. So that's just a small nitpick, but the movie honestly focuses a little too much on Wanda, for a Doctor Strange movie at least, because she gets more development here than even Doctor Strange. You start to really ask, like, whose movie is this exactly? It does more for her arc than it does for Doctor Strange's, than it does for, the Star Girl, whatever her name actually is. She has just so much more character development. There's so much more focus on her and her story than there was on anybody else's, and it kind of makes me wonder, why is this movie not called Scarlet Witch? You know what I mean? I get they want to keep it they wanted to kind of hide that fact that she's the villain. They wanted to make you think that she was just here to help Doctor Strange throughout. So I kind of understand it, but it really just made me want to see a Scarlet Witch movie more. Like, I just wish they'd go ahead and give her own movie at this point. Like, yeah, WandaVision was cool, but it was very limited to a very niche style of, like, storytelling. So I would love to see a movie in the future just about Wanda. And on top of that, speaking of, like, whatever's going on with Wanda, when they were hopping through all of the dimensions throughout the movie, where in the hell was Vision at in any of these? Is there no universe where Vision is alive and helps her raise these kids? Like, she has her kids in pretty much every universe, but she doesn't have Vision in a single one of them. And if they were going to focus on her and her story arc, I feel like he was so crucial to add to this movie to help her arc. But he was just kind of absent through this whole thing. The whole movie could have gone a lot differently if you saw, like, say, instead of just her and the kids, in the final fight, whenever she sees, like, the other dimension of herself, if she saw her kids, and Vision, like, I just feel like the movie would have been a lot more dynamic and a lot more interesting if they had included him in it. It works without him, but it kind of makes me just wonder what could have been if he was present in the movie, just in some way. And speaking on the conclusion of the movie, I kind of feel like they're becoming a little bit too reliant on Wanda's guilt to stop her from hurting people. Because we're seeing it time and time again. Ever since Civil War came out, she's just been driven by guilt to not hurt people. Even in WandaVision, it ends with her stopping what she's doing because she realizes she's hurting people. And that guilt makes her not want to do it, but then she turns around and just hurts people again. So it kind of, her character is just very wishy-washy, very back and forth. And I hope that in the future they can kind of move away from using her guilt against her to like stop her. And I hope they look for other solutions in the future, because at this point it does start to feel a little bit repetitive. Honestly, how many more times can they get away with the same kind of conclusion for her, It's like her character still develops. She still gets to where she's going, but it just always feels like it's the same way. And one more bit of nitpickiness when it came to her character. After about the second or third time of her saying, "I'm not a monster, I'm a mother," after about the third time of that, I got tired of it. Like, I got tired of that same narrative being played back to us on repeat over and over and over throughout the movie. Like, I get it. Like, they repeat it every time she's on screen. And it's like, you're not really a mother, I can't really sympathize with her character on that, because she never was a mother in this universe. She's only been a monster. Like, I do feel for her. I do feel her pain. But when you preach it to us the same way every single time, at some point, you do kind of just stop feeling sorry for her. I don't know if they included that as much as they did for like a social message, but there were little bits and pieces throughout the movie that kind of made it feel like they did have a social agenda when making this movie. Like, certain details blatantly thrown in your face. For instance, when the Illuminati is fighting Wanda, or when they're fighting Scarlet Witch, I guess, because technically I don't know if she's still Wanda or not. I don't know. But when she's fighting the members of the Illuminati, Peggy Carter ends up being the one to put up the best fight, despite the fact that she's probably one of the lesser powered characters or one of the lesser powered members of the Illuminati group. It kind of reminds me of the scenes from Infinity War and Endgame where they just kind of like punch you in the face with girl power and shit. And it's like, it's cool to have girl powers, but don't make it such an exceptional thing. You know what I mean? Like, it's fine to have powerful women characters. In fact, I actually really like Scarlet Witch as a character, but it just feels like it's beaten over your head a little bit. Just a little bit. It's mostly nitpicky. Stargirl, though, I did not really find her interesting. I didn't really connect with her character on any kind of level. She was just kind of there, just kind of along for the ride. And I understand she's important to the story, but she didn't really have a whole lot to do except run away. Her powers honestly kind of annoy me. I mean, her powers herself aren't annoying. It's just she gains a certain level of control over her powers, just kind of randomly in the movie. But she doesn't train. She doesn't train to become that powerful. We don't see her gradual progression really leading up to that point. She just kind of, out of the blue, can control her powers because the story needs her to. Moving on from what I disliked about Stargirl, I feel like she's fine. I feel like she can. I feel like she can be better in future movies. So I am still excited to see her in the MCU. I like her inclusion. I just wish it was executed a little bit better. Speaking of executed, let's talk about the Illuminati real quick. I really did like the concept of the Illuminati. I liked their inclusion, but I couldn't help but feel like they were literally just there to get slaughtered, and that was it. Like, they were just there to be brutally murdered and then just be swept away under the rug. Like, they really didn't have as much of a presence in the movie as I would have personally liked them to have. Granted, I do like their death scene, and I like the fight scene that they did have with Wanda for the most part, but I just wish they were a little more fleshed out than they are. Because at the end of the day, it does kind of feel like they existed just to set up future MCU projects, and then that's about it. I also didn't like how the Illuminati members just immediately did not trust Doctor Strange. Like, they knew he was from another universe, but they still treated him like he was this universe's Doctor Strange. And that's fine, but they really, to me at least, they didn't give enough examples of Doctor Strange being corrupt and having, a very corrupt nature to him. They didn't really give enough examples of that for me, for them to just logically come to the conclusion that he's just immediately the bad guy. Because it really does beg the question, how did Strange become powerful in these other universes? Because in the 616 universe, in the Doctor Strange that we know, the Ancient One chose him because she knew beforehand that he would be the best of the best, and that he was at his core, a good person, and a very good candidate to do what needs to be done to keep the Earth and the multiverse safe. Does that mean the Ancient One just doesn't exist at all in these other universes? Does that mean Doctor Strange kind of just found Karmatage on his own or got powerful on his own without the help of the Ancient One? What are the dynamics of these other Doctor Stranges that end up going corrupt? Did the Ancient One not see that coming? Again, just kind of another bit of a nitpick, kind of coming off of the last one. In the multiverse, you could definitely write it off as, oh, well, anything's possible. It's the multiverse. You can be a fucking sentient paint. You can be a sentient glob of paint. So it's like anything really is possible. There could be these other universes where Doctor Strange is that powerful. Without the Ancient One, are these Doctor Stranges really going through the same story that our Doctor Strange is going through? I don't know. It just kind of raises a lot more questions than it really answers. And it makes me feel like the evil Doctor Strange narrative is just kind of there to serve the purpose of the story a little bit. But, I'm digressing. I did also find the story itself to be a bit predictable, because as soon as the books are mentioned, it's like, oh, we got to go get that. We got to follow the characters. They got to take a journey to chase after these books. And that's basically what they do for most of the movie. But then at the end of it, the books are kind of like a second thought. They're in the back of your mind, but they don't play a big prevalent role in the story as we are led to believe that they are from the beginning. So just kind of to wrap all this up, I did think the movie was really fun. It was definitely an enjoyment to watch the film and kind of go through and watch it all play out. So I definitely don't think this is a bad movie by any means. I did thoroughly enjoy it. In fact, I actually plan to go see it again after recording this. It did have a couple of problems. I don't think it's a top 5 Marvel movie. I don't even think it's a top 10 Marvel movie, but it is worth a watch. So what did you guys think about it? Tell me down below. Let me know. Have a little conversation about it. And yeah, that's pretty much all I got to say about it. Hope you guys enjoyed, and see you in the next one.